5 minutes to curtain. Today we are Donnelly's in downtown Barrie with Arkady Spivak from TIFF Theatre. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh,
it's been a slice.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier. I think it's been close to about 25 years because I was trying to measure my youngest daughter when she was around, and you used to come into the salon, and yeah, it was great. Great to catch up with you finally.
And I was hoping I'd lose hair by now. It'd be cheaper. But I've outgrown more.
Well, you know why I'm wearing a hat, so.
Seriously, we've had this conversation, yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about, if you don't mind, about your background, your Russian background. Could we talk a little bit about your childhood and how you eventually came to Canada?
Sure. Well, I'm actually Russian Jew, or a Soviet Jew, would be, because Russian is a different kind of ethnicity and religion altogether. I was born in what was once the Soviet Union in mid-70s, 75, in Moscow. And then my paternal parents, or paternal grandparents, I should say, and a bunch of other relatives on the paternal side have emigrated to Canada or United States in late 70s, when it was still considered a taboo thing to do. So you're sort of betraying homeland. You are kind of, the country, the regime, or so to speak, had given you so much, and free education and health of no consequence, but it was free, et cetera, et cetera. And now you sort of, there was a huge stigma attached to it.
Okay. And
then in the late 80s, with my mom and myself, well, I didn't have any choice in the matter because I was 14, my mom decided that Soviet Army, which was a mandatory thing, was coming up at 18, and I'm known for many things, but climbing over walls and things like this in Afghanistan or whatever wouldn't be it. And so that and a bunch of other reasons was sort of, we came to visit actually when Soviet government, Gorbachev, allowed people to actually visit. And my mom saw what it was, and immediately she threw in the process of us immigrating, which happened in late 89. It was still Soviet Union. It was still going to be Soviet Union until 91. And then we spent 9 months in Italy, because at that moment it was sort of intermediate place, because you had to exit from Soviet Union to get permission to do that, as Russian Jews or Soviet Jews going to join ancestral whoever, presuming to be Israel, but that was never going to be in the plans. And then I spent 9 months at 14 not going to school, being an adult. And which was fine, because Russian education system, you did trigonometry in grade 4, and read classical Russian plays at grade 5 about lives lost. I'm like, I didn't have a life yet. I don't know how to lose it. I don't know why is it. You didn't understand any of it. So, but I got a second layer of understanding when I went to took math at high school here. At any rate, so 9 months of no school. We arrived to Canada. I turned 15, and here I am.
That's quite the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where did theater come into all this?
Backstage.
Okay.
My mom was a single. My dad passed away when I was 5.5. And for that and other reasons, I was backstage a lot of the times, because A, she just brought me to work once accidentally. Second of all, this would kind of replace kindergarten or babysitting or whatever. Then my stepdad also was an actor in the same company, and they made a mistake of letting me show up backstage once, and I kind of understood what went into it and that whole magic behind the magic, and that was it. And I kind of wanted nothing more, nothing less, and nothing more.
Yeah. So from there, did you get into more of an acting side?
That's right. I had first of all, I was a child actor in 2 repertory theaters, meaning that it's a different thing than Stratford and Shaw, meaning it's a company maintains a stock of production in perpetuity until such time as, so it wasn't about the season, it's not about a run. Shows could run for 20 years. They could also run for 2 years if it's not successful, or even less. So they needed 2 reputed theaters in Moscow needed a child actor. And so they imagined the empowerment that at 11 years of age, they had to schedule performances around me, not around stars that actually shoot films and things like that. But that wasn't really, I'm like, oh, now I'm powered. But I also had a theater company, my first theater company when I was 11. We toured orphanages. And I basically just blackmailed the entire class, or half of the class that stood to be victimized. And I basically said, if you're not going to be in my show, I'll tell your parents that you smoke.
Oh, jeez.
And they said,
blackmail.
Oh, total. Now
you.
I do that to the audience. But at that time I did. And so we toured, and that's a separate story. But because I was getting paid quite a lot. I was paid 3 rubles and 20 kopecks per performance, which we did like 10 of them, so I got 30 rubles. And just to give you an idea, a monthly salary was about 90 rubles to 100 rubles to a dentist or an academic. But I had no expenses, so I had to use $30 somewhere. So I was really a funder, a producer. It was like horizontal integration, they call it. I didn't need anybody else.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So how is Russian theater different? Or is it different than Canadian or North American theater?
It is very much different in school, in approach, and I don't think theater needs to establish value over there at all. It's part and parcel of, you go to the theater because this is who you are, not because you need to spend 5 nights a year to buy season tickets with your friends, and that's an excuse to get together with those people, and that sort of becomes a tradition. It's really, I wouldn't say the audience is necessarily more knowing that the discerning audiences in North America, but the whole idea of being part of a culture was from a, not everybody, it's still a smaller percent of population, but still there is that. Secondly is the way you regard artists. It's not just skilled trade workers who fulfill missions and visions and requirements of institutions. It's actually, a curtain call we could go on for 20, 30 minutes. People bring flowers and gifts to the stage of the actors, not even the ones that they have a particular knowledge of or follow their work. It's you go to you see flowers being sold for $1 or whatever, you buy it, and just because, and then you present it to whoever you want to that night. And actors are not waited at stage door to add another hour or an hour and a half to the workday after they do 8 performances a week. So it's a different, and to address an elephant in the room, Putin actually uses artists' influence to whatever misguided preachings, and it was constantly on Wikipedia pages, you see such and such signed a thing in support of the president or did not sign, and then that. I'm not talking about the morality of it, but I'm just saying how artists are important, that they can actually popularize the regime.
Yeah.
And with that, it's not necessarily all good things either, because there is propaganda that you're then signing up to glorifying and that kind of stuff. But the point is, imagine if Justin Trudeau called the Star of Stratford Festival, could you please sign a petition in my support of whatever it is?
Say no more. Yeah. Let's get on to TIFT.
Yes.
Talk is Free Theater.
What is that?
Yes, Talk is Free Theater. So where did the name come from?
It was an inside joke.
Okay.
That is too long but it's very tongue-in-cheek and a bit of a legacy itself. What I say publicly, though, is that TIFT is, Talk is Free Theater, the whole idea of free exchange of information, free exchange of dialogue, freedom of speech, those kind of things. But it also means, in restoration English, to TIFT is to get something ready to prepare.
Okay.
And that's really, and I'm totally making an excuse for the name, but nonetheless,
it doesn't
matter what the initial motivation was, as long as it exists in accuracy for what it needs to accomplish. We can talk about what makes the organization special and unique, we're very patient and we give a lot of time and duration of time, years, decades, etc., to try something new and get at it. So we're not sort of lining up where it would be easy. It's like doing cutting-edge programming as a regional activity for a smaller municipality is the first, it's been tried before, but never for 20 years, and then other things. So so we can talk about what TIFT actually is, but I think the name is very central, regardless of how it originated, for what the work is.
Yeah.
You know.
So tell us a little bit how it all started. It's basically your baby, your dream, and
Yeah, there were. Yes, the idea was mine,
Okay.
but all the success is really, somebody can be a figurehead, but it's a combination of so many different people at different times, people helping in the right way at the right time. The history is full of that for any organization, and most especially for us, because we're like a good bite out of an impossible,
Yeah.
But the idea was, and at some point we were going to, like anybody who's graduated, who's kind of trying to prove, wanting to do it in Toronto, but it was Joe Anderson, who was a publisher of the Barrie Advance, who became our founding chairman, with whom I worked in a different capacity for 2 years before that, said, why don't you do it in Barrie? Because he was interested in the whole what culture brings to a community through various things. And I said, well, if you'd like to be chairman, we can meet in a week and determine if we both want to. Yeah, you can persuade me, but if you're not throwing yourself into the same hole, then anyway, we both said yes, and I think that was the smartest thing, is to found the organization in Barrie, to establish it despite all odds. But at the same time, people think that the organization is successful. There are some things I'm not happy about, but in a grand scheme of life, despite the fact that we are here, but I actually think it's because we're here, and many, we can go into it in greater depth, but yeah.
Yeah. So what exactly is your role then with TIFT? I'm sure you wear many a hat, but
My own position, or
Yeah.
for the organization itself?
yeah,
My
well,
own.
yours and the organization.
So I'm called artistic producer,
Okay.
which is a sort of not the first time this model has, but also quite a rarity. Typically in an arts organization, you have somebody who is an artistic head, artistic leader, who establishes the program, the aesthetic, the vision program for the organization against the budget, but also against the mission. And they're really the heart of the organization, what they believe in philosophically, morally, etc., etc. Socially, and then there is somebody in charge of business who then to develop and manage resources for that particular vision. It's understood that the artistic head is usually also practicing artist within their own organization or elsewhere. I'm not interested in working within specific projects. I'm interested in coming up with crazy, transformative ideas to benefit. We can talk about what or who. And then I'm like, this is your dirty here is my dirty laundry. I'll pick it up in 3 weeks. Call me if you need me.
Yeah.
And empowerment, enabling, provoking even, is what I think my position is. But then, because I don't work within the shows, most of my time is spent on maintaining, developing resources for the kind of thing that we want to do.
So it also gives you opportunity to take the shows on the road. So not just on the road, let's talk a little bit about some of the productions that you've taken overseas and even down to 400. There's been a few. Would you like
even
to
down
share?
400, you make it sound as taking things down to 400 is more difficult than flying
I'm
across
sure
the
it could be.
And it actually is. You're quite right. You're quite right.
I almost let one out of the bag when we were talking earlier, but if you want to talk a little bit about some of those. Very interesting.
So in the last year alone, we've taken 3 projects. Of one is a big musical that did it outdoors in New Zealand. We do, for the last 15 years or so, a play called Tales of an Urban Indian. It's a solo indigenous play, so one actor who plays multiple characters on a moving bus that drives around, which was an idea born when we didn't have a theater for 1 year. So, but suddenly we thought we did, but then it needed to be rebuilt in what is now 5 Points Theater. So we put it on a bus, and it will celebrate sometime next year. By next year, just for the purposes of not dating, is 24-25 season. It's 750th performance, so it's kind of become a Barrie legend in a way, but also seen international. So we've taken it to New Zealand also, but to Fiji, but also to Chile, Argentina, and Suriname. There should be contest so people know where Suriname is. Nobody knows. Just the last year. So, but we also been to other places and so on and so forth. Touring, by the way, is very, very important and very important extension of what we do. Not at the expense of the projects in Barrie, because we still do full seasons, extra full seasons, but it allows us to be invited and paid to bring our work over there. So that really limits how much money we have to raise locally to maintain a sort of, we invest here, but then we amortize the shows, so that essentially the city of Melbourne is paying cultural development for the city of Barrie. Because, it's cultural export. Then, of course, the whole ambassadorship for the kind of work that, because what we say is, we don't just do theater in, we're not just interested about doing theater that Barrie is getting, we're interested in doing theater in Barrie that nobody else is getting. Well, and because of that, there are invitations that, and also the whole idea of artistic progression. We show our work internationally, and then the artists, the shows keep on living and coming back. So we don't just invest in, we don't plant a tree and then cut it off. We keep on leveraging it artistically. The company is growing together. The artists have more informed point of view, particularly after the pandemic. They needed to be empowered. So there's all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important, because there are very few head offices in Barrie where I can go in and say, hi, would you give me $50,000 because I think we're doing a wonderful thing. It doesn't exist, and that's good in a way, because it allows us to have more people, more sectors interested.
Was one of the shows you did on the buses? Was there one that you took to
Tales
London?
of an Urban Indian.
Yeah.
And not on the no, that was a 3-day experience.
Okay.
Where every person was on their own, and then gradually becoming part of the group through activation with strangers that you never knew if you're a fellow audience member, or
Love the concept.
an actor, or just a civilian. You could be getting a little message saying, hi, if you go to Homestead Bakery downtown or Bohemia, go to and order a muffin and talk to them about weather in Paris, and then report. The person that you're actually acting opposite doesn't even know that they're part of a big event suddenly. It's not like there's a camera that follows. Anyway, that journey continued. Day 2 of the experience, people were literally put on a flight and sent to London, England, where this continued. We also had a 1-day London version so that we could distort it even more by introducing more people. And then there was like a big event, big surprise musical at the end that sort of was a culmination of the theme of what people were exploring.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and the worst part is now that we've achieved it, we don't want to do it again, and yet there's a framework for how to do it. Because you don't just do a new show, you set up a new framework.
Yeah.
But you can't really go there again, because what will you do again for 3 days? Like nothing. What will you do again on the bus? I'm like, it's not like I was looking to do shows on the bus, it made sense for that particular play.
Yeah. Tip also, it's not just productions, theater.
Yeah.
You guys also do a lot of, there's workshops and other things that the community get involved with as well. Do you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's really important. I mean, what people see on the website or what they relate to is the programming that we do, but that's actually, I would say, probably just half of what we do. The other thing, of course, is all sorts of educational work with, and by education, we stopped really because it's been synonymous with youth. It's as though the moment you're 19 and go to university or graduate that you've preserved, that you've presumed to know everything. But whatever happened to experimenters in their 60s and 70s, people who are still wanting to learn? So we're kind of changing that a little bit. Okay. So there is all sorts of, we have volunteer program, we have opportunities to get involved through ushers. I mean, I'm just giving you the most basic and simple things for the sake of time. We also invented translation glasses during the pandemic and created software and built through various colleagues, where basically for the first time it breaks a language barrier in theater. You wear your glasses. If an actor says something spontaneously, it can then pick up, translate, and transcribe it into, or transcribe, translate in whatever language, or if it's literally text, it just pre-existing. So we can do that in non-traditional space. So we're working with non-English speaking elements of whatever. And then of course we do have a lot of youth programs. I'm not sort of anti-youth suddenly, but that's not the only thing that we believe in education. We have a program called Adopt a Production program,
Okay.
where a high school class adopts a production from beginning to end. In other words, they go to rehearsals, 3 of them, then the final thing, so they know how the play is developed, and then they get free tickets to come to the show. We also have a work where an idea where young people create a new play in multiple languages without speaking one common language. Those kind of things. On the other side, we also have we do a lot of work to empower and not stabilize, because stability sometimes becomes complacent. Empower and support the work of artists. So we believe that anybody can sing in the mall and get paid for it, but only artists can make a difference, can change the world. And by artists, we don't actually mean somebody who gets paid to sing. It's anybody who is strong enough in their individuality and actually uses it for the unique way, who has a unique sense of artistic process. Okay. It could be pilot, it could be doctor. The moment you have a unique take on the world, that's an artist. That is an artist.
Have you had any like from the workshops or any productions? Have you had any of those, maybe even from a younger generation, where maybe their screenplays or whatever have been taken to a different level?
Yeah, like all the time.
Yeah, good.
And this is why we want to get into touring, because we actually want to help them do that. So if something is successful in Barrie, the next stop is Tokyo or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because every theater works in their own geographic paradigm, and yes, no matter what we do, we're pro-Barrie or Barrie inspired, but there is no. I'm not interested in the city walls. It's not like Kremlin or anything that is surrounded by walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has there been any productions that you've seen that you thought, geez, I'd love to be part of that?
Yes, but you know what we do then? We invite a ready production.
Okay.
A lot of the times what we do is we create work from if it's established play, we still develop a production, which is a unique reading of that play, or sometimes we commission a new play. But if it's a group that you go, there is nothing we can add to it, but our audience deserves to see it, and it would be beautiful in the season for that and that reason, then we invite. So recently we invited a play called First Métis Man of Odessa, about a love story and the relationship and marriage of a Ukrainian actress and or an actor and indigenous Métis playwright who fell in love right before COVID, realized they were, and so they were separated because they just before COVID, and then COVID happened, they realized they were pregnant, and then he smuggled himself into Ukraine during like the biggest restrictions, like in 2021 or whatever, to have a wedding, and then the war happened. So it's that. So this is a play that is actually being done in Toronto as we speak. That's the one you saw, and I'm like, oh, I've already had a season figured out and budgeted. I'm just adding it in. I don't care how we're going to pay for it. Not that I don't care how we pay for it. I'll have to figure it out. But it just absolutely must be added.
Yeah.
So if it's a play, we can still support it. We just don't have to create it. And I feel like, oh my goodness, I don't have to do all the work. And you actually know what you're selling. Because when we do a season announcement, and it's nothing but a bunch of promises because we haven't created it. I could say it's funny, but what happens if it's not? Artists have not created it. Here I actually know what we're getting into.
Yeah.
And I can talk to people not with a promise, but with a guarantee.
Yeah. Where do you think TIFT will be in 10 years' time?
Oh.
Tough question.
Tough questions. I have this, everybody loves me not to hear. I'm sort of planning for me is not, it's more a revaluation of core values than it is aiming at a particular direction and then strategizing all, I could tell you just for the sake of answering your question that we're going to be going, I want to have been in every country in South America or raise the budget to that level or grown the audience. But all of those things are results, they're not causes. And I think a lot of times we want the result without the thing. Whereas what I think it is that For us, it's growing in capacity, not necessarily growing in size. And growing in capacity really means that we're able to undertake any adventure that supports our standard, our core values, who we are as an entity, so that we are able to do that increasingly. So it's actually developing more resources to be free, not developing more resources for the sake of resources. So in terms of like the general thing, I think it's very, very important to put artists in a power-making position. Yes, of course, it's easy to lock them in the room and have them create because it'll be quieter. And maybe that's true, but you also want to recondition what artists are asked to do in society. They have to prove themselves, I'm not asking about free, whatever. We are known as an organization, but it's sort of like an unofficial success, a secret success, if you will, because we were concentrating on actually doing new work. So I think there is a lot of growth, or a lot of improvement in allowing more people to come into that, whatever that means. I'm not saying going mainstream, but figuring out a way of having more tourists come to Barrie, having more people buying real estate in Barrie, so that they
spend,
so they can, because yesterday I'm on a tourism Barrie board. Somebody said at the AGM, like, tourist is the future investor. I'm like, thank goodness, because I'm not interested in somebody coming here for 2 days. I'm interested in somebody to buy a house, be it an artist who we can work with and who live here, or that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah. So quickly, we know we're getting a new center that's going to be built. Quickly, give us maybe 2 or 3 things that you'd like to see for the city to consider, or designers, whatever, that I think that we really need.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, we can get into more specifically if we have time, but generally speaking, I think it's really important for everybody to remember that it has to be done for the right reason, and that is, it has to work for a specific group of artists who need the venue integrally, because a bad play, which happens, you can close in 2 weeks, 4 people will remember it. Forever, but 4 people will remember it. There is no getting out of a bad building, or a building that was built for a different set of purpose that makes it organic and viable. So I think the buildings have to be built to the needs, plausible needs, and worked out needs, and things that actually make sense. Of arts companies, not just say, hi, the city wants to build. I think the buildings, theater buildings, professional theater buildings, are incredibly important, but the right kind of questions have to be asked, which
exactly.
Political sector and even economic leaders don't necessarily get. It has to be what will make arts organizations more vibrant and vital, and that's actually what they need.
Yeah. Thank you very much, my friend. It's been a pleasure. Good to see you as always.
Thank you.
We'll catch up again. Thank you.
I hope so.